We continue our reading of Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, an invitation to spend a year with your best friend. Today's reading, July 16. Disgusting parables are for Peter's. But many that are first will be last, and the last first. Matthew 19:30. So the last will be first, and the first last. Matthew 20, verse 16. Yesterday, we began to examine the parable of the farmer and the laborers. We left the scene with those hired first grumbling because they received the same amount as those brought in near the end of the day. The farmer replies that he had done them no wrong. After all, he had paid them what they had agreed to. The problem in the laborer's eyes was that he had been generous with those hired later. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? The landowner asks. Matthew 20, verse 15. The issue at hand is one of grace, giving people more good things than they deserve. Thus, the laborers, hired first, were really complaining about God's graciousness. They're upset because the farmer is generous. In our scripture reading for today, we note that Jesus bracketed the parable with a repetition of the first will be last. It is a subtle warning and rebuke to Peter and his followers. Jesus had already told them what they wanted to hear, that they would have thrones and riches and importance in the kingdom. Now he presents to them what they need to hear, that they shouldn't get puffed up with their importance just because they were the first disciples. Here we have a highly practical teaching with implications for us modern-day disciples. A very real implication of the parable is that the first won't be in the kingdom at all unless they get over their grumbling about God's graciousness and move away from too much concern with their position and rewards. Certainly, Jesus aimed his first shall be last statements at Peter and the disciples, but in our day, they could apply to those who have served Jesus all their lives, in contrast to those who are converted in old age, or long-time members of a congregation who helped finance and build the local church, in contrast to later members who may be rising to positions of leadership. In the end, we need to see the message of the parable as universal. None of us are so good and holy that we can grumble about God's grace to others. Doing so may leave us in the unenviable position of being last, even if we started first. This concludes our reading today of Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus.